and this is Lancaster Area Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour, number 101 in the series as it happens. And you'll find them out there on the club website right back to number 28, I think. These later days we've been slicing out coherent videos that show up in Coffee Hour and posting them as separate videos as well, which makes them a lot easier to find. And I was surprised to learn the other night that some people didn't know that the club had a website where all these things were, and it does, and it's lancastereawoodturners.org. Yeah, and it's a nice site. Mike, our member Mike Junkerth maintains it and keeps up very well with the stuff that we post. Because I've passed off editing videos of the regular club meetings to other guys. They get posted. They don't get posted right away. I post these from Coffee Hour right away because I know what happens if I fall behind. But for the monthly club meeting, they got a whole month to get around to it, so it slows it down. But they do show up on the club website, and you can hear his presentation from Tuesday night if you missed it on vacuum chucking. And while I'm making announcements and talking for a second, I'll remind you that on the 19th of May, that's 2 coffee hours from now, we're going to entertain Nick Cook, or we hope. Ernie's been talking to Nick and will be co-hosting with me that morning. Nick is well known to many of you from his many years of writing for AAW and demoing at AAW events, and I think it's going to be a very entertaining hour. I'm intending to pull out some of the projects that he's done for the journal over the years and make a little slideshow of those, just in case he doesn't have them all, because there's some brilliant projects, and a lot of them are very doable, and a lot of them are very clever, and Nick is a very straightforward guy. Let me see. And this morning is a show and tell morning, but before I even get to that, does anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make? Okay. And this is a show and tell, and I've got some hands up already, and I know that I have some pictures from Don Smith, and I know that Ernie has a video. So anybody else would like to hit raise hand, which brings you up to the top of the screen, and we'll call on you in some order this morning. If you don't know where raise hand is, it's on the reactions tab. If you go to the bottom of your computer screen, look at the icons that appear down there. The third one from the right says reactions, and if you click that, the biggest button there is raise hand, and if you click raise hand, you pop up to the top of my screen. I don't know if it does it for everybody else, but it certainly does for mine. And I see a nice row of guys up there or people up there with things they'd like to share. So with that said, I'm going to share some pictures that came into me overnight before I go down the screen, because it's just easier that way, or I think I am. Let me try it. Yeah. This is a shot from in our meeting space that includes the cube fan in the middle of the room that we made. This is an anti-COVID precaution that's made from 4 furnace filters and a regular hurricane fan and a whole lot of tape. There's a better view of it. That thing can filter all of the air in a large room and very, very quickly. And we've been using it in our club meeting space, and I think it's effective. And if any of you guys are starting hybrid meetings in your clubs and you want to add one of these, you can find lots of plans for how to do it online. It's called a Corsi-Rosenthal filter. Hundreds and hundreds of them have been made for classrooms all over the country, classrooms and community meeting spaces and churches. You need to have MERV 13 furnace filters, which can be had 1-inch and 2-inch thickness. They are equivalent to HEPA. They will filter out virus particles. And it's a very effective way to protect yourself and other members who are in the room from COVID. As we're seeing in the news, the White House Correspondents' Dinner the other night turned into a super spreader event. It's an important precaution, and I bring it up here now because we are also organizing a monthly forum for club leaders who are wrestling with hybrid meetings. The next one of those will be on the 16th of May. And any of you guys who didn't receive an invite to the last one who would like to receive an invite to the next one, let me know, and I'll put you on the email list. While I have a share going here, I'm going to show a slide. I was only able to grab one of these. This is from Mark Skinner toward our discussion of lathes. Mark, are you there? You want to say anything about this? This is your new Laguna, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, so as you can see, we're lathing in the laboratory.
Yeah.
So we we purchased this lathe back in November. Judy and I both turn on it and like it a lot. It has variable speed control and reverses, which is very nice for sanding.
And it's quiet.
And it's also very quiet. It's a 12-inch swing. You're pretty much limited to a 14-inch spindle. It's a nominal 16-inch lathe, but by the time you get tailstock on there and the drive center, you're probably not going to get anything bigger than 14 inches long on it. But for a relatively inexpensive lathe, it works very well. And basically anybody looking at a new lathe, I would suggest that they look at something with variable speed and with reversing capability.
Does this have a bed extension available? Do you know?
I don't recall.
And
Yes, it does. I have one.
Okay.
okay. And what do you think what's the general price range of it?
It's $9.99 is the list price.
Uh-huh. So there you go. That's a vote. That's a voice in the new lathe discussion. Anybody, any comment on that? Anybody else with experience with this lathe?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead, whoever that was.
Yeah, I happen to have one, and if I could suggest, it's a pain in the butt to lock the spindle and try to get something off of there. But if you make a little, what I did was took a flat piece, glued a couple of rare earth magnets, built up what do I want to say, like a spigot, and you can stick the spigot into that red knob, and the rare earth magnets will stick to it. That will lock your spindle, and then you've got both hands to work with it.
Right. Any other comments on this lathe?
I've got a question. I turned on a very early model of that about 3 years ago, I guess. And it was niggling to me that it was very hard to lock the tool rest in the banjo. You had to put a fairly Herculean effort on the handle. Has that been improved? Do you have any bitches about that, Mark?
Ernie, I haven't had any problem with it. You probably have to use maybe 10 pounds of force. But it seems to work well. So perhaps they have addressed that issue.
I have that same problem with mine. You can't lock that very easily.
Who's that? I'm trying to find you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The handle on it, you can adjust the position of the handle relative to the shaft of the locking screw. So basically, say, aside from just having to move the handle sometimes to get good torque on it, I haven't had a problem with it.
Well, that looks like you have a robust tool rest in there as well. Is that right?
No, it's the tool rest that came with the lathe.
Okay. It looked like it had that welded steel rod on the top of the high, very impervious to nicks and dings.
Yeah.
It does have the knob, and it's the bar on the top. Basically, it's a robust copy.
Okay.
I have something to add there, John. It's Jeff Sykes up in Canada here.
Yeah.
I have the same lathe, and the question regarding the tool rest lock. What I had to do was just put a piece of duct tape where the slot is, because sometimes a fine dust gets in between there, and then when you try and lock the handle, the tool rest will not grip as well, and it will drive it down if you have a little bit of a catch there. So maybe if folks are having that problem, is maybe just put some duct tape over that slot just to keep some of the dust out.
Good tip.
Yeah. I'll offer one more comment. The only time I've had an issue with the lathe was when I put a 12-inch diameter piece of heavy green wood on it. And the lathe was kind of underpowered for that.
Yeah.
Normally I wouldn't turn anything that big anyway, so.
Yeah, I would think it would be, yeah. Okay.
This is a 10-inch piece on here, and it does fine with that. So.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Don Smith sent me 3 photos. I
Hey,
think.
John, this is Gerald. Last Tuesday evening, you showed us a little technique when you have a split screen or have 2 images on the screen, how to resize them. Why don't you run over that for some of the people that are here today that weren't here on Tuesday evening?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what you guys are seeing, but you may be seeing the speaker in the moment me alongside the slide that's being shared. And if that's right, then
Yes.
you can change the relative sizes of those if you put your cursor in between the 2 windows, and you'll get a caret that allows you to drag the windows one way or the other, so you can make one bigger or smaller as you want to. I can't do that from here in the particular view I have on right now, and I'm not inclined to screw with it, but maybe I can. I don't know. But it does work. It did work the other night, and I think it will work for most of you. So that's worth experimenting with.
It's working right now.
So next up is Stu Bremner. What do you have, Stu? You have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
There you go.
Good morning. See, I'm an Oiler fan.
I see that you are.
All right. I wouldn't wear a Pennsylvania with a jersey tonight. You know, it's just it's not there. Anyway, just going back to the fellows who were talking about 1.25 inch 8 thread on some spindle sizes and that, and they're having trouble finding bolts and nuts for it. I did hear something about this. I haven't had the experience myself, but I did hear this from within our group, and they are available, and they're used in the oil field industry. They are very hard to find. But I can't say that I know where you can get them, but if you give me till next week, I will research it. And one of the fellows that know a fair bit about it is Bert Bleil. And Bert's not on today. He's helping out at the local high school with some volunteer turning that they're doing there. And I was there with him yesterday, but that's where he is. And I can't tell you an awful lot, but the bolts are available. So for those fellows that be looking for it, if you're tuned in next week, I'll see if I can get more information, or if I can get Bert on to you, and we can see if we can help you.
Well, we're on that. I'll remind you that you can buy from Bleil a 1.25 by 8 tap as well.
Oh, that's a tap, but I think those fellows are looking for nuts or bolts for.
With the tap, you can make nuts, but you can't.
Yes, you can. I understand that, but I think they're looking for steel or something that they can make face plates with, or I don't know, other vacuum chucks or whatever. But anyway, that's the information that I've got for you. If it can help anybody, I'm glad to help there.
You got something else you want to show while we have you spotlight?
No, I don't. I haven't been too busy in the shop here. I got one piece on the lathe right now that's a brand new piece of birch that I picked up. It was fresh cut a couple of days ago, and I hollowed that yesterday, but it's still sitting on the lathe. So
okay.
Stu,
yeah.
Are you a Snap-on dealer? I see a Snap-on over your shoulder.
I used to be, and my son was also. So this is in my office.
Aha.
Aha. Okay.
It's an anniversary toolbox that's come out last year for Snap-on's 100th anniversary, and we redid the office and put that in there. So.
And what's the gold?
Yeah, I'm proud of it.
What's the gold chain all about?
That's I think it's Edmonton Oilers.
I see.
One of the souvenir things that I bought at the game. I was there Monday night, and my wife was there last night. So anyway, we got sucked into buying one of these.
It's kind of hard to escape hockey when you're in Edmonton.
Yes, it certainly is. Our 50-50 hit over $6 million yesterday.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was incredible.
I'm going to take the spotlight off you, Stuart, and I'm going to give it to Kai.
Good, thank you.
Morning, Kai. What do you have today?
Yeah, morning. I've got a little follow-up from last week about the turning eggs, because there were some questions asked, and I made a very short video, which I will try to share. So Let's see whether that works.
Yep. Now, just a second. This is one of those cases where it's very easy. If you put your cursor on the little white dot between Kai and his share, you can drag him. So Kai becomes bigger and the share becomes smaller. That's individual on your computer. When I do it on my computer, the recording captures that.
Now you should be able to see it.
We do.
Okay, great. So then let's start. Oops. So that's an ordinary unboiled egg, and it won't turn, as Ernie said. That's the test where you can kind of find out whether an egg is boiled or not. That's a boiled egg that will turn, and it even turns with the spinner. The only problem is that after a while I broke the shell after trying several times, and that's a turned wooden egg. I put the dot on the end where it's thinner, and I tried it several times, and it always turned to the heavier side.
The heavier side turns down no matter what you do.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Hi, all you need to do on the shell is coat it with CA glue. Then it won't break.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Very cool. Questions for Kai?
It's surprising that with the real egg, excuse me, with the real egg, it stood up on the larger radius end with the pointy end sticking up.
Yeah.
With the wood you had last week, it was standing on the pointy edge with the blunt end sticking up.
Yeah. Maybe it depends a bit on the way the egg is turned. I don't know. I would have expected it comparing it with a normal tippy top, which stands on the handle or
the light end, yeah.
Yeah, on the light end, that the egg does something similar and will stand on the kind of thinner or smaller end as well, and the heavy top up. But this one didn't, and I tried it several times. So at least with these eggs, it was the case. I don't know whether it's a general rule. Yeah. Okay.
Did you check to see if it was? Did you check to see if it was a double yolk?
No. I didn't.
But
Okay.
Kai, you've got that's a point with the yolk though. The yolk is going to be denser than the white, and so if it's at the bottom end, the density of the egg at the bottom is different than the top, the small end.
Yeah, that's right. So, and even if you look at eggs, they are not all the same. They come in different shapes. Even if you buy them, they have kind of different shapes and look a little bit differently. So that might be a reason as well. And we had a meeting in Germany, a Zoom meeting with some woodturners, and someone showed an egg that looked a bit square. Funny thing, but he said he saw it in a museum and it was really an egg produced by a live animal. So eggs are different. So they are not all the same, even if you get them from animals.
I do expect it's a question of where the center of gravity is. And with the tippy tops, that's also the trick to getting them to work right, I think, is where the center of gravity is.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's what I wanted to show you, because someone asked, can you do that with a real egg as well? And it spins, it works. It sits on the heavy end, at least in my case, and the other one turned to the same side all the time, and that was the heavy side as well. But that might be just
and if any of you were curious about the spinning device that Kai was using there, that's detailed in last week's coffee hour. We didn't bust it out as a separate video, but there's a very nice little clip in the middle there of that. And I might just take that work and what you've given us this morning and put them together into one little egg spinning video. I think it'll be kind of cute.
You could have a difference in density from the boiled egg by the fact of how they sit in the pot as they're boiled. Some sitting on small end, some sitting on heavy end. That could have an effect on it.
might be. I didn't think about that. I just put them into the pot and let them boil for 15 minutes because I wanted to make sure that they are really hard boiled.
Well, the way you could get a control of that is with wooden eggs, of course. The wood is uniform densities, so turn a wooden egg to the various egg shapes that you want to investigate and see how they spin.
Okay, that's a project for the future then.
Yeah.
Okay,
John, use a knot. Use a knot for an egg and see what happens. So.
Okay. So there. Thanks for that on eggs. And now I'm going to go over to Barry. Barry, what do you have today?
All right. I just wanted to, as a closeout on my vacuum chuck, this was the bowl that I had mounted with this, still had a foot on it for the show, and I didn't have the equipment there or the time to take it off. And so yesterday I went ahead and cut it off, and I was very pleased with, I have a short video that I made, but I don't want to take up your time, but it is about a 3-minute long video of removing that sharper tool would have helped me a lot, but you could take off quite a bit at one time and it didn't produce any instability. But again, I want to preach about if you make a vacuum chuck, try to make sure that it can get clamped so that the foam or whatever you're using for a gasket allows it to collapse down so it is hard mounted on whatever, whether it's PVC or wood chuck, so you get hard to hard contact. And I did some turning at about 400 RPM and about 1200. About 400, there was some chatter, but no wobble. And at 1200, everything went really well. And then I just put the Bleil buffing system on it.
So in other words, the gasket makes the seal that holds the vacuum, and then the wood to wood or PVC to wood contact is what stops it from wobbling on the flexing on the gasket. So it's like a two-part bearing surface. Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yeah, a lot of in fact, most or all of the commercial vacuum chucks that I've seen, and I have never actually bought one. I've just looked at them online, but they all appear to have a gasket that completely covers the face, and they range from 1/8 inch to, I guess, 1/4 inch thick foam, and it just invites, no matter how stable it is as far as balance, if it all compresses nice and uniformly, there's still the issue of it is in effect a spring.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be one or more frequencies or RPMs at which your bowl or whatever you're finishing will set up a response. The foam is giving and yielding and shaking, and so it's going to produce chatter. It's not unsafe; it just can produce chatter, and so you have to find the single magic RPM where it doesn't do that. Whereas if you can suck it down right against the PVC chuck or right against the wood, there's no more, I guess everything is really a spring, but it's an extremely high stiffness value of a spring, if you will, when you clamp wood to wood or ideally wood to metal, but we're not making metal chucks here.
Okay. Anybody else with any comments or questions following on from Barry's presentation? I think quite a few of you were there.
Hey, Barry, I was always told to stay away from Venturi type vacuums for vacuum chucks. But when I watched your shop vac demonstration, I was wondering how the ultimate vacuum of those systems stacked up to something like that. I just have no idea what you get. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Now, again, you have to understand all my knowledge is gained from endless watching and not from doing. But my endless watching, and that included commercial Venturis that run somewhere in the order of between $150 and $180. And the make-it-yourself Venturis, which bottom end, they're little more than a small hole drilled through with 2 big holes and a crossways hole, and that's your Venturi. And you can knock one out from a piece of aluminum a 3/4 inch bar or something in no time. But the best of them that I've seen don't pull any more than a good shop vac. You know, it's not a scavenger like a real vacuum pump. Each pass of the vane is removing some number of molecules from whatever's present. And as long as you can get a good seal, the scavenging action can remove virtually all the molecules. You can never get an absolute vacuum, even NASA, whom I used to work for, can't achieve a true vacuum, but they can get it down to where it's like 4 decimal places, 0.0001 vacuum to simulate space and other things. But a Venturi, I never tried it. And the reason I didn't make one or buy one was I have a little pancake type compressor. And I know it does not have enough CFM to drive the Venturi to effectiveness.
John,
a lot of you guys have big shop compressors.
Barry, I actually have a Venturi system myself, and it doesn't go up to the full vacuum you said, and it says that you must have at least 10 psi or 10 or 12 psi to make it safe. So I'm just, I understand what you're saying. I can't get up as high, but I've never, as long as I have the vacuum over the minimum that's recommended, even on the small ones, I've never had a problem with it, unless I've got a leak in the wood or something like that. And that's the biggest issue. Right. It just doesn't draw enough. So if you have any porosity anywhere in your vessel, it will fall off quite quickly. I suspect that if you have a higher vacuum like you're talking about with a vacuum pumps, that you might be able to get away with a little bit of porosity in your wood, or more porosity than you can with the Venturi one.
Well, if porosity even becomes an issue, I can say right away the Venturi is superior to a shop vac, because a shop vac is pretty much immune to porous wood. You could actually drill a small hole in your project, and if you enjoy the sound of whistling, it'll suck it down almost as well as no leakage at all, just because the system is built with so much inherent leakage around the adapter and the spindle and around the lid of the vacuum cleaner itself. You have all kinds of room for leakage.
The Venturi one that I have is one of the ones you buy from Woodcraft that goes off the pressure vessel, your large air pressure vessel. So it's like a high pressure vessel. And the biggest thing with those things is you have to have a big enough pressure vessel so that you don't lose the airflow. It requires a certain CFM of airflow in order to do it. So I think what you'd argue is that if you have to buy a big enough pressure vessel to run the Venturi suction system, you may as well just buy a vacuum pump.
Well, yeah, $75, and you're there.
Yeah, Barry's found very cheap vacuum pumps work well.
Yeah, exactly.
Barry, I have found over the years that a true vacuum pump pulls about an inch more of mercury in the long run in most situations, and does seem to have more volume that it can remove. Also, the O-ring material, if you used, when I first started trying these years ago, I used standard O-ring material, which is about 80 durometers of rubbers measured in durometers. And it was just not resilient enough. You could get a vacuum if you had a fresh off the lathe bowl that was very symmetrical. You could get a vacuum, but you could lose it just as fast. There's several people online selling O-ring material for vacuum use, and it's about 30 durometers. So it's much softer and more resilient than a standard O-ring.
Well, that gets you about.
I looked for that, Ernie, and I couldn't find it. The lowest I could find was about a 55 durometer. And I bought an O-ring, a 6-inch diameter O-ring. It's made for some kind of a water system. It's a 1/4 inch cross section O-ring, and it was labeled as 55 durometer. and a vacuum, it was too hard to make a vacuum. You got leakage on it.
Barry, the question is, which device makes the least sound? There's too many noises going on in the shop. So which way to create vacuum? Are the vacuum pumps very quiet compared to compressors or shop vacs?
Extremely.
Right there.
And also the vacuum pump is not affected by length of hose. So you could actually have the little vacuum pump sitting over outside your shop or in your house proper and run a 50-foot hose. And the hose isn't going to collapse. You know, if you get these urethane compressor type hoses, it doesn't collapse and it doesn't have any degradation of effectiveness by running a long line. It's not like shop vacs where it relies on a fairly short hose or it just loses its usefulness.
Well, I also noticed that your vacuum pump was a lot quieter than your shop vac.
Yeah, I would say it's probably, I would guess it's probably around, maybe it's like a cheap dishwasher. It's probably about 50 decibels. Whereas a compressor can be up, you know, close to a 90 or something like that, 95, and shop vac is certainly up in that same range.
Okay. Any more comments on this whole issue, or do you want to wait for I think the videos that are finally going to come out on this from Barry and the club are going to be very illuminating. And
John, I've got a shot of these chucks I've made and a couple of comments too.
Okay, I'm going to go to you next then, Michael.
Okay.
And I think Ray has something to say on this too, so we'll get around to all of you. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, I'll do a share screen. So here PVC is really difficult to find. It's used for gas exhausting on high efficiency furnaces and water heaters and that. So ABS, and rather than using pipe, using unions, they tend to be more cylindrical than the pipe itself. So this is on the left is I think a 4-inch, maybe a 5-inch. As you can see, I put a calculation, 210 pounds of force at full vac. And the one on the right, I think, is about a 3-inch. And for my stripping, I'm just using foamed polyethylene. I think it's a packing material. I just cut it out and I put it on with ABS cement. Or not ABS, but what do you call it? Contact cement.
Well, that'll compress down hard, that stuff, though, won't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I've never had a problem. I've never experienced any of the vibration that Barry talks about. I have one that's 5 inches. Actually, I sent him a note the other day. I made for the bowl lathe I didn't have a tailstock and I only had one faceplate. So I designed a vacuum chuck that fits in a regular stronghold chuck or a Talon chuck and has a piece of copper pipe sticking out of the back with a #2 rubber stopper that goes into the headstock. One of the things, Barry, I think that you didn't touch on very much the other night is the adapter for the vacuum. I didn't quite understand how you were, but I don't want to divert into that. I bought a one-way adapter 20 years ago. They are like $5 more than they were 20 years ago. It's the best buy on the market. They're about 125 bucks. I have a 50-year-old gas pump, a vacuum pump, like I used to sell when I started out with Fisher Scientific in laboratories. Thing is, still pulls 25 inches and has an input filter and an exit filter on it. It's a real old one that has a bit of a gas oil leak into it. Just has a piece of copper or cotton threaded material to pull in a little bit of oil, but they're foolproof. They go back, my God, they go back 50, 60 years and they're foolproof. If you can find, I bought mine on eBay for 70 bucks. It was a government surplus years ago. But once you've had vacuum, man, it's the only way to go. If you do bowls, it's the only way to go. There, I can end.
Okay. Anybody else on this? Ray, you had something on this topic?
Yeah, I use vacuum a lot. One thing I found is I run into problems when I overthink it. Is you're looking at it. Vacuum is different than putting pressure on because it seems it'll self-seal. So I don't. When you see the discs and everything with material on there like the neoprene and all that, I don't use any of that. Contact makes shelving material non-glue on the back, and it's very, very thin. You cut off a piece that you need, cut a little X in the center just to draw a vacuum. I put that over the piece and just put it on my disc. Anything gets on it, you throw it away. It works. Putting the seals and the stuff like that, the more you use them, then you end up developing a leak. When the piece comes off, now it's gone. The other thing is 1 1/4/8 nuts are available through Granger or McMaster Carr, and they're about a little less than $5 each. They're a little bit pricey for a nut, but they are available. And the thing with the shop vacs, for years, guys have been trying to use the shop vac because they don't want to spend the money on a vacuum pump. And they just brought up the biggest thing that's been happening probably over the last 4 or 5 years. The gas pumps, that GAST, that come out of a laboratory are made to run. They run all day to create vacuum in a lab. That's why the guys like them, because you can turn them on and just run them. What happens with a shop vac, they're not made to run in a vacuum mode. I mean, vacuum, when you're sucking dirt off the floor, that same air cools that. When you put that in a vacuum mode and there's no air, you set the motor up for failure. So if you got a bowl that you think is worth $400 or $500 and you're trusting that $35 shop vac, take your chances. So some things you can't cut corners on. And when you go to that, the frugal guy does the frugal vacuum guy. You've probably seen him at the shows. He rebuilds those things. You can buy one for $100 and some, but he rebuilds them and you get it. They're like new. I know a number of people got them. It's a little investment, but you're dealing with a real vacuum pump. So that's it.
All right. Any other comments on vacuum chucking since we're all here on that?
I have one comment. Ernie, you're friends with Dave Houghton. I know Dave does a number of things with vacuum chucking, and he uses both the Venturi and also the conventional vacuum chuck. Wonder if you might invite him to join us someday.
Yes, we John and I have him on the schedule, and he's agreed to do it. But he actually works as an advisor to T something or other. TMI that sells all kinds of vacuum gizmos, and they have a Venturi really that'll run very nicely off a nail gun compressor. 4CFM will run it quite nicely. And they make a very nice line of vacuum chucks at pretty reasonable prices, about $75 to $80 for most of their chucks. They sell them in 3 sizes. But he, for years, used the refrigerator motor out of an old refrigerator. Now, there is at the time, Freon wasn't the bugaboo that it is now, but you can't just go cutting the lines in a refrigerator to steal the motor. You got to have the Freon taken out responsibly, et cetera, et cetera.
Harvey, yeah, okay, go for it, Harvey.
Yeah, I just want to mention I was able to pick up a gas pump by buying a compressor that was used by a renovation company for spraying VOCs and providing a face mask with a positive air pressure. And it turned out to be the same pump that you can then hook up as a vacuum pump. So if people are looking for something on the used market, don't just look for the word vacuum. They also can look for a small gas compressor. And I called Gas up or emailed Gas, and the guy says, yeah, it'll draw 26 inches of mercury. So for $90, it worked out really well. That's it.
Okay, so you guys have been giving us tips and all that and links. Could you mind putting them in the chat, and then we'll be able to send the chat out to everybody. because I get the whole chat when I'm done, and I easily can put it in the tail end of the video email. Okay, anybody else on vacuum chucking, or we're going to go on to the next guy in queue here? I don't see anybody waving their hand, so I'm going to go to Clifton. What are you going to show us today, Clifton?
Well, I will tell you, I really love my vacuum chuck. So, but this has nothing to do with vacuum chucking. This is my little goblet on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my little goblet going completely away from my normal direction of bowls and platters. This was made with, it's cherry, and Compwood is the stem.
What's Compwood?
And the Compwood is a company that takes wood and compresses it long ways. And the analogy is it ends up looking like the corrugated section of one of those bendable straws. And after they send it out to you, you can pretty much cold bend it to the shape and it stays. And so that's what the stem is on this.
How did you get it to be like? Did you turn that stem or sand it? What happens to make it into the? So you.
Well, I did turn it like you would turn knitting needles. So I started it through the headstock, and I made basically I turned a wood Morse taper collet chuck. So I could turn part of it and extend it and turn more and extend it and turn more and extend it. And it went from where I'm turning, which is only about 4 inches long, from the headstock through my little wood collet chuck into the tailstock, so it didn't whip around, and I just worked it through and did it like that. So it's not a one-piece unit. I would love to have been able to turn this as one piece, but you can tell it's not.
So you could actually, that stem isn't hollow though, is it?
Oh no.
So you couldn't run a lamp cord through that.
No, the stem where it goes into the goblet of the piece is probably a heavy 16th. Wow. So I'm not sure. I mean, that's always the next idea of what next. I know that I've done some long boring with turning making my own D drill or gun drill, and I've done some 16th inch holes relatively long, but I've never tried it there. So now you've set up something else in motion. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm also curious about your shop-made collet chuck with your shop-made Morse taper. We've had a couple of guys say, "Oh yeah, making a Morse taper, turning a Morse taper is easy," but I didn't find it easy when I tried it. So I would dearly love one of you guys who knows how to do it to give us a demo.
I would love to do. I can easily one day do a quick demonstration, because I have taught the Morse taper to youngsters, children in the 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old range.
And I ought to be able to follow it. I'd love to.
I know. Well, I wasn't quite saying it to mean that, but it is. I have a system where it's once you get it down, it's really quick, and you can make Morse tapers. I have, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a box, and I just take them, I put them in the headstock, I face off the end, and I glue another piece of wood to it to make any type of fixture I need at the moment. So once you make the Morse taper, you can just keep reusing that Morse taper depending on what you put on the end of it.
So will you show us how to do that one day soon?
Oh, I'd love to, yeah.
We'd like
Clifton,
that.
is that taper, does it run the entire length, or is it the best success I ever had was making like one that had about a 1/2 or 5/8 inch of taper at the big end and 1/2 or 5/8 inch of taper at the small end. and in between, like the 2-inch space in between was relieved intentionally, so I could tell on trial fits whether I was bottoming or whether I was topping, if you will, on inserting it.
Absolutely. And so when you first start out, you can easily do that. You have the two sizes, the front end and the back end, and then relieve the middle. And that is the quickest way to make a Morse taper. What I found is those work, but if you get to the whole length making contact in the taper, you get more support, obviously. And so when you first start out, relieve the middle, and that makes a serviceable Morse taper. As you keep making them, then you get away from having to relieve that center, and more wood gives you more hold, more friction, more hold.
Okay. Well,
Clifton, are you using them instead of face plates?
Not necessarily, but I have made small ones. I mean, I don't want to. Let me grab one. 2 seconds.
Well, Ron Sheehan had sent a note, a comment. Ron, are you there that you can? What is the easy jig that you're talking about?
All I did was glued a small strip, about half the diameter of the taper on a block of wood, put it up against a Morse taper shaft, and glue the other side of the strip on. You have a little jig in your hand, and as you turn, you just keep sliding the jig on until it fits. It only takes a couple of minutes to make a jig. They're very simple. I've made a lot of Morse taper jigs. I use them for buffing wheels and a number of different things that I've used them. Very simple.
A trick I use all the time in turning Morse tapers is to, when I get it close, I just smear chalk down the length of it. Then I stick it in a spindle and turn it, and you see where the chalk smears, and you know where to take wood away.
Yeah, they're not difficult to make.
My Morse tapers are in the other shop. So, but
we'll come to you.
They have their space. They have their purpose, and for quick holding, and I need this right now. They work. Obviously, they have their limitations, but I like the cost of them. I like the I like the cost. So they're fun to, as I said, they're quick. They're easy to make. When you need something right now, you don't have to. You make it on the fly, so to speak.
So to speak. Okay. Duxbury, your turn.
Oh, you surprised me. I need a.
Are you going to share?
Okay, this is a flat board built up around a square, and it's cut ringmaster style to make a bowl. So I think I can do this next. I don't know where the next one went.
There it is. Now we're seeing down into the bowl.
That's what it looks like in a bowl. This is what it looks to the side of it. Bottom, the top again.
Now, let me ask you, do you like the strong contrast between the colored woods? And have you ever tried it with woods that are closer in color value, similar but not the same?
No, I haven't. I did a series of these just to show what happens. And this is one built up around a triangle, same kind of thing. And when you get done, you get a triangle like this.
Huh.
And it's just fun to do. Just it's only a 10 by 10 piece of wood, 1 inch thick, or not even. This is where I built up the center is, here's the center over here. So the feature is offset to show that it can be done in the side too. And you end up with this.
Huh.
No.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah,
if you weren't using, I guess that's maple, the white, you might have more of a interesting artistic presentation because I like the thing, but the white really steals and makes the pattern so pronounced that my eyes go a little crazy on it. I wonder if you replace the birch with, oh, I don't know what, something that's gradient between the walnut and the cherry. I don't know, just an idea.
I just picked them for contrast to show what happens more than anything. I can tell you the first guy that saw it bought the whole set except for this one. I had this one just being made. And I wish I hadn't sold them because like I said, I kind of get attached to my work sometimes. Anyway, that's what I've been doing, just to show.
Okay. Want to kill your share then? Good. Dave, you want to try it again?
Me. Good.
Not making it.
Yeah, let me try one more time here.
Okay. I do recall you got it right the other night, so it's not.
Yeah.
There's sometimes latency creeps into these systems, and it just won't quite do it. Do you have the workpiece? Can you hold it up?
Yeah, I have the workpiece. I'll just go to that. I thought I had it on here. Okay, just go to the workpiece. I'll close that on this.
Yeah, we see you full screen, so hold the work up and we can see it.
Okay, so what I have is the starship like Kai showed the making and one time, and I have the balloon light on top. But what happened with Kai's is that you had to make a separate jig to spin it. So this particular balloon light has a eye hook on the bottom of it. So what I did is I used epoxy and I glued the bottom of the balloon light into the wood. And therefore I can replace the batteries by unscrewing the entire top off. And that way I don't need a jig, and I just use the light itself to do the spinning. And then I also put a name on it. This particular one is my son. So just thought I'd show that to Kai because I was too lazy to make a jig. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot for showing.
Yeah. Bowman, is your hand up to show us something?
Yes, indeed.
Go
Something crazy.
Okay.
And I'll see if I'm lucky with my choice of sharing.
There you go.
This I didn't have a name for. I think I call it Altogether Different Together. It's Osage orange, which I'm interested in seeing how fast it changes to the tan that'll be I think an in-between color between the black walnut. This was turned as a vessel, and I had a few funnel making events where I came through, so I patched it up. I put a leather strip around it, and if is it Norbert, who's the leather guy?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I call you the leather guy because I think of you. I had a little trouble with getting some contact cement on the outside of the leather. Couldn't find any way to remove it, so I just sanded the blooming thing and put the walnut oil over everything. I have one more picture here of it from the other side. This was turned, I had cut a blank out of one side and the chainsaw on the other, and so I just, for stupidity or for fun and chisel time, I turned the vessel and then inserted the walnut in the top. That's a vase, so it's drilled all the way to the bottom. So that was just the fun stuff. One other thing, the other day, you guys, I showed you I showed you a bowl like this, a platter with the, and you said to me, hey, is that one piece? And I said, no, it wasn't. Well, this one is. And it turned out to be beautiful. This is a walnut slab I got from the yard guy that cuts my lumber. And it just had beautiful grain in it. I loved it and I wanted to brag about it. So I decided to show it to you. I cut it close to the bark edge because then it has you can scrape your peanuts out of the tray into your hand real easy, right? I decided not to cut out the bottom into feet. You know, I could have made 3 feet, but I decided to just leave a little bowl on the bottom. Here's what it looked like on the lathe when I first put the oil on. Isn't that beautiful? Just wood-wise. So that's my share.
So you're calling this a bowl, are you?
A platter. I used the wrong word, John.
Oh no, I'm okay with that. I'm all for expanding definitions every chance.
Well, if you call it a platter, then you have to say platter with a bowl inside. So I don't know what they need to have a name for it. I don't think it's a bowl. I see it as a party platter where you put something in the middle and something in the platter part. So I don't know. That was the fun I've been having. I haven't shown any of, but I got this huge burl from a local tree guy, and I'm cutting pieces of that, and I'm having a real learning experience how to keep a burl together when you're hollowing it out, because this one's got voids throughout like crazy. And I'll show in a couple of weeks. I have about 3 or 4 pieces already. I'll show you them, but I want to get the one finished that's on the lathe right now.
And with that, kids, we're right up on the hour, and brings us to the end of another very interesting Woodturners Coffee Hour. Thank you all for participating, and we'll see you.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.